Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. As I'm sure you can tell, NBA free agency is well underway. There's been a ton of big moves, huge extensions for some of the league's top young players. But there are a few teams, especially in the Eastern Conference, that have made some incredible moves that I wanted to highlight. I was going to make a winners and losers video of day one, but I decided to push that back until after a few days into free agency, where I'll just kind of make an overall winners and losers of free agency video. So make sure to subscribe and like if you want to see that video and don't want to miss out on it. But to start off, there are three teams in particular in the East that have been killing it early on in free agency. And they're three of the top four teams in the East: the Celtics, the Sixers, and the Milwaukee Bucks. Those three teams have been having an incredible start to free agency, and I kind of just wanted to go over each of their moves and why I like them so much. We're going to start off with the Boston Celtics, who might be the winners of free agency so far. Obviously, they ended up winning the Eastern Conference this past year after one of the most impressive runs to an NBA Finals we've ever seen in terms of where they were at halfway through the year. Under 500, they had to go through a lot of really tough teams, eventually falling to the Golden State Warriors in 6 games. It was an impressive run, but it was clear that they had some holes in their roster. They needed to get a little bit more experience, and GM Brad Stevens, who a year ago, or I guess a little over a year ago, was their head coach that everyone kind of liked, suddenly he's fired, kind of moved, whatever. They mutually part ways, and he goes to their front office and just becomes one of the best GMs in the business, making great trade deadline deals by picking up Derek White and some other guys who end up helping them reach the Eastern Conference Finals and eventually the NBA Finals. And now at the start of free agency, the Celtics weren't a team that had a lot of cap space. They didn't really have the ability to make some big moves. They couldn't go out and sign like a superstar player, so they did what they had to do around the edges. The first deal that they made this morning was they signed Danilo Gallinari to a 2-year deal. He was traded to the Spurs in the DeJounte Murray trade and immediately cut because the Spurs are tanking. They don't really need him. So picking up a guy like Gallo is huge. One of the Celtics' big issues was their inconsistency with shooting the 3-ball. They need more guys who can knock down those shots consistently on the perimeter, and that's exactly what Gallo is going to give them. He's going to give them a bigger body that can play the 4 alongside Robert Williams or Al Horford if they want to really space the floor, and he can just kind of stand in the corner and shoot threes. He's not going to be asked to create much, but he can if he has to. He has some decent range, so he can really stretch the floor. But in reality, probably most of the time, he's just going to be asked to stand in the corner and be a 3-point shooter. And there's not a lot of players that you can get better in the league on that type of contract. They're paying him like $6 million a year to be one of the best, like, just catch and shoot guys in the league. That's a huge pickup for them. That really helps them a lot. And it gives a guy like Tatum, who has continuously gotten better at driving and kicking, another guy he can kick out to on the perimeter, as well as Jaylen Brown, because sometimes they would kind of get into some problems driving into traffic. They wouldn't have someone to kick out to, or they would just kind of get flustered. Now they've got a 7-footer who can sit in the corner or on the wing or on the elbow, wherever, and just catch and shoot jumpers. That's huge for them. And in addition to that turnover problem that they had, probably the biggest reason why they lost the finals was their inability to take care of the ball. They would turn it over left and right. And Marcus Smart is a great point guard. He just won Defensive Player of the Year, but they really need kind of a truer point guard is what most people were thinking. They need someone who can kind of slow the game down more, take care of the ball, make more decisions, and that's exactly what they got in their trade today, trading Daniel Tice, Aaron Nesmith, Malik Fitz, 3 guys who didn't play in the playoffs other than garbage time minutes, and a first-round pick for Malcolm Brogdon. This is one of my favorite trades, probably my favorite trade of the whole offseason so far. I love this fit and this value. If you don't know, I'm a UVA guy, so I'm a big fan of Malcolm Brogdon just off of that, but I also think he's a perfect fit for this roster. Marcus Smart is big enough to play the 2, and Malcolm Brogdon now can slot in at the 1 for a starting lineup of Brogdon, Smart, Tatum, Brown, not in that order. Brown will play the 3, Tatum the 4, and Robert Williams or Al Horford, whatever you want to go with. That is a really good starting 5. It's a team that has a lot of versatility. Brogdon is solid defensively. He's a good playmaker. He was 4th in the league in drives this season, so he can attack the basket and create for both himself and others. He's a great playmaker. He's a great shooter. He really just adds everything that this Celtics team needed, from a playmaker and a shooter and another defender, which continuously makes the Celtics even scarier defensively. the Celtics are primed right now to repeat as Eastern Conference champions. They are an incredible, incredible team, and Brad Stevens continues to kill it. But they do have some competition. The 76ers have made some great moves to start off free agency of their own. They started off with James Harden opting out of his deal to take less money to allow them to bring in more guys, and that was huge for them. Because James Harden could have very well taken his $46 million player option or demanded a $40 million a year deal. Instead, he goes ahead and says, I'll take something in the mid 30 millions, which is still a ridiculous amount of money, but in terms of what he could have made, he gave up like 10, 12, $13 million a year to allow this team to try and compete for a championship. In addition, he's apparently already in the gym trying to work and get back into shape, which is great news for Sixers fans. Because if Harden can look anything like the Harden of years past, alongside Joel Embiid and the recent additions and the role players that they have, the Sixers get very, very scary. They added PJ Tucker for 3 years, $33 million. Some people are going to say it's an overpay. He is a really good player. He's also a player whose game is going to age pretty well because all he does is shoot corner threes, which is a great option to have when you are Joel Embiid or James Harden. He's one of the best corner three shooters we've seen almost ever. Not many people play that role better than him. He gives them some defensive tenacity as well, gives them a dog, someone who can really be physical, kind of an enforcer. The Sixers really kind of lack that this past year, and he's a guy that's going to get up in your face, like really hustle, make those plays that he has to make, and just ultimately help your team win games. Every team needs a guy like PJ Tucker, and he's been on the NBA champion Bucks and the very close to being Eastern Conference champion Heat the past 2 seasons. Wherever he goes, winning follows. They also, before all this, added DeAnthony Melton for the 23rd overall pick, who is a fantastic pickup for the 23rd overall pick. He gives you defense, playmaking, shooting, a little bit of everything at the backup guard spot, which they've desperately been lacking. Now that Tyrese Maxey is slotted into the starting lineup, their backup guards have left a lot to be desired. They traded for George Hill a season ago from the Oklahoma City Thunder to be a backup guard. That didn't work out. Shake Milton is solid, but he's kind of inconsistent. DeAnthony Melton is going to give them a consistent backup guard to continuing to add depth to a team that is getting deeper and deeper. They also added Dan House, another former Rocket. Morey continues to pick up his boys, a guy who is just going to be another 3-and-D guy, which is never bad to have on the roster, as well as Trevelyan Queen, who just won G League MVP for a 2-year deal. Just another guy who can add some depth and has shown that he can have some pretty solid moments. He's got some promise, so why not pick him up? So, a pretty good pickup, adding a lot of depth for that Sixers team. They could still potentially trade Tobias Harris too if they wanted to, but even if they don't, a starting lineup of Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker, and Joel Embiid is one of the best in the NBA, especially if Tyrese Maxey continues to make the jumps that he seems capable of. And then finally, we have the former NBA champion Milwaukee Bucks. Whenever I talk about them, I keep saying like reigning champs. I've got to get that out of my system. The last year champion Milwaukee Bucks, who haven't added that much, but they've really held on to what they've had over the past couple seasons. Mainly keeping Bobby Portis on a long-term deal is huge. He has been an incredible piece for them over the last couple seasons, both in their championship run and last year. A great shooter, continues to grow and get better, and it seemed like a possibility that he could be leaving this offseason. Instead, the Bucks hold on to him, which is huge. They held on to Wesley Matthews, who's really solid, Javon Carter, who gave them some pretty good backup guard minutes, and finally, they brought in Joe Ingles, who, when he gets back from his injury, probably right around Christmas time, is a perfect fit for this team. He has a playmaker, he has a shooter, assuming that he comes back pretty healthy from his injury, we might look back and be like, how the hell did the Bucks get Joe Ingles? Adding an incredible 40% three-point shooter like Joe Ingles, who can also play make, pass the ball to a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo on cuts. He just adds another force, as well as a solid defender, although the injury is probably going to take a little bit of that away, but he's just a really versatile, and he has a lot of tenacity, who he really does kind of fit this Bucks scheme of bringing in guys who can play defense, who can shoot, who can play make. He is going to be perfect in that Bucks system alongside Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. And like I said, they still have room to make more moves. Free agency isn't over. So these 3 teams have really started off hot to free agency. A couple more Eastern Conference teams I'll give a shout out to. Of course, the Atlanta Hawks making some moves. They just traded Kevin Huerter for Justin Holiday, Mo Harkless, a first-round pick. So adding some different guys while also kind of clearing up some more space in that backcourt. They also, obviously picked up DeJounte Murray, which is a huge pickup. The Raptors picked up Otto Porter, who I think is a great pickup for them. Fits their system, can just knock down some threes, which they definitely needed. Held on to Thaddeus Young, kept Chris Boucher, so a good one from them. And the Heat, while they did lose PJ Tucker, they held on to Victor Oladipo, who is a really solid piece for them. He's just got to keep getting healthier, and he can give them some great 2 minutes. So, those are my thoughts on some of the Eastern Conference teams that have really killed it so far in free agency. I think it's pretty clear that the Heat, Bucks, Sixers, and Celtics are the top 4 teams in the Eastern Conference. In whatever order you want to put them in, those 4 teams I believe are pretty close, but they are making some incredible moves to continue to further themselves from the pack. I'm really excited to see how the Eastern Conference goes this season and what other moves these teams could potentially make, because there are still Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant waiting in the wings for a trade, as well as a lot of other stars that could potentially be on the market. We'll see what ends up happening, but for right now, I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy. If you're a fan of one of these teams, let me know how you're feeling about your team's free agency so far, or even if you're not, let me know your thoughts on your favorite free agency moves so far. Who's your favorite to come out of the East at this point? Let me know all that in the comment section below. Would love to hear what y'all have to say, but for right now, I appreciate y'all watching. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.